Next item on the agenda is council resolution. Mr. Kimmel.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Before I get into the resolution, a few people I'd like to say thank you to. This was not simple, putting this together. And first of all, Diane Belch-Jacobson in the Law Department helped with the timeline and some of the legal language in the resolution. And without that help, I don't think it would have been very, very difficult to put it together. Stuart Wells in the Registrar's Office provided us some data on elections in different towns that became quite interesting when we were discussing some of the bullet points in the resolution, so we thank him. Mario Coppola, our Corporation Counsel, over the last few months, answered all the questions that we sent to him, and very, very helpful. And finally, putting this packet together, which was changing almost daily, I have to thank Irene Dixon, the Assistant City Clerk, who put up with a lot, and I certainly appreciate calling her almost every day saying, well, this is changing, and she handled it with a lot more calm than I would have. So thank you very much. We truly appreciate that. Also, John Kites, Majority Leader, and Minority Leader, Shannon O'Toole at Gianderco, we were in constant touch. We're talking about these issues, how to do it, when to do it. It's not so simple, and we were hoping, and we still hope that we can get a bipartisan agreement tonight. So thanks to all of you, and here we go. I'd like to first read the resolution, then move it, and then speak to it, if that's okay. Charter Revision Resolution. Be it resolved that, A, in accordance with Section 7-188 of the Connecticut General Statutes, the Common Council of the City of Norwalk initiates the process of amending the Charter of the City of Norwalk and, for that purpose hereby, appoints a Charter Revision Commission. This action must be adopted by a 2/3 vote of the membership of the Common Council. B, in accordance with Section 7-190 of the Connecticut General Statutes, the Common Council hereby appoints the following individuals as members of such Charter Review Commission. Number 1, William Fitzgerald, D, Democrat, Chair of the Commission. Steve Kehoe, D. Yvonne Rodriguez, D. Michael Witherspoon, D. Mary Roman, R. Glenn Iannacone, R. and Jerry Petrini, R. There are regulations on how many members of one political party can be on such a commission. C, the Common Council hereby recommends that the Charter Revision Commission consider amending the Charter of the City of Norwalk as follows. Amend Charter Section 1-166 to provide that the town and city election for the office of mayor shall occur every 4 years rather than biennially. Number 9, if the mayoral term is increased to 4 years, then amend Charter Section 1-166 so there is a 2-term limit for the mayor. 10, investigate the possibility of extending the terms of Common Council members, the town clerk, and the other city officials to 4 years. And other city officials to 4 years. 11, investigate the possibility of amending Charter Section 1-167 to correspondingly adjust the election of the members of the Board of Education, which currently are on the ballot, quote, at each general municipal election, end of quote. 12, amend Charter 1-166 to remove all references to selectmen, city treasurer, and sheriff. 13, amend Charter Sections 1-215 and 1-224 to remove all references to the salaries of city officials, or investigate the possibility of amending those sections so the Board of Estimate and Taxation sets the salaries of city officials. D, the Charter Revision Commission shall submit its draft report to the Common Council on or before March 22nd, 2016. And that's the resolution. Mr. Mayor, I would like to speak to it briefly.
Mr. Kimmel.
Okay. First of all, regarding the 7 members of the commission, we think it's a really strong group of people. They represent each section of the city they cover each political district, and it's a diverse group, and we're confident they will do an excellent job. Regarding the 6 bullet points, these are the issues. We decided to focus purely on the issues we inherited from the last few years. You remember there was a fair amount of talk last term about a charter revision. We just couldn't get it together for a variety of reasons, pretty much good reasons. We were pressed for time, and we didn't want to rush into anything. But these are the issues we inherited over from last term, and we limited to that. The first one, the 4-year mayoral term, we've been talking about that for a long time. We also added the possibility of term limits. That's for the Charter Revision Commission to look into. Numbers 10 and 11. Because we knew this could be controversial and there would be different opinions, good opinions on both sides regarding the lengths of the Common Council, length of terms for Common Council members and the town clerk, and how to make that synchronized with our Board of Ed elections, we decided to use the language, investigate the possibility. Our goal there was to provide the commission with the most flexibility, with a lot of flexibility on these issues. We understand you can discuss these issues forever and still not come to a conclusion. So we are suggesting they investigate the possibility, look into these, and come up with a recommendation we either can live with or we can't live with. But that's why we use that language. Select charter section number 12, to remove all references to selectmen, city treasurer, and sheriff. We really can't, it's very difficult to describe the function of these charter-based positions. They are on the ballot, and they cause two problems. The most important problem is their presence on the ballot under state law must be near the top of the ticket, which pushes the district-wide Board of Ed elections to page 2, the second side of the ballot. And there's always a drop-off on the second side. By removing these 3 offices, we push the Board of Ed elections onto the top of the ballot. Also, we're tired of answering questions on Election Day from voters inquiring about what do these people do? Who should I vote for? And we're not able to answer those questions. And the last issue was something that's been around for a while, and it was around last term, and we didn't know how to deal with it. We handed over to the commission. It has to do with the investigate the possibilities, all references to salaries in the charter. That makes it virtually impossible to change anyone's salary at this point. We'll leave that up to the commission. And finally, March 22nd date was chosen. It gives the commission 10 weeks to complete its job, submit their information to us, and for us to deliberate. Our goal is to see if we can finish up our end of it by July 1st, before the summer. We'd rather not be doing this in the middle of the summer when people are on vacation, when council members are away, when it's difficult to get quorum sometimes. So we'd like to get this done and have some kind of cushion. So we're asking for March 22nd. Some folks have raised the possibility of extending that. Maybe we can discuss that in a few minutes. I want to make one final point before we discuss the resolution. During the last couple months, as we've been discussing charter revision, issues keep coming up. You know, different types of issues, whether they relate to the police commission, whether they relate to planning and zoning, the Board of Education, a variety of issues. They never stop coming up. And we are committed to looking at the possibility of perhaps another charter revision in the next year. After we're done with this one, perhaps in the early fall, we'll begin discussing it again. Some of the issues that have emerged over the course of the year. So that's that. I'm moving the item. It's open for discussion. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Kimmel. Any discussion? Mr. Bonifant.
Just to be clear on this, if this did pass and there was a Charter Revision Commission, once they started holding hearings, they're fully allowed to take up any of these things that you were talking about. We're hoping that happen next year. They're certainly welcome to discuss those things right on the spot. I mean,
that's correct.
Whether you're giving them the hopeful guideline of 6 items here, they're still free, once they hear from the public, and if the public convinced them that certain issue is really important to the community and it might not be listed here, they're certainly welcome to recommend that in their reports.
That is correct, Mr. Bonifant. They can open up any part of the charter that they so choose. Whatever recommendations they bring back to the council will be voted on individually. It's not voted on as a package. So every item that they bring back will have to be voted on by the council. And keep in mind that the council will also have to hold a public hearing as well.
Okay, thanks.
Further discussion. Ms. Bowman.
Yes. I'm going to support this today, but I am very interested in either, whether it's this time around or next time, additional items being looked at, because I think that, like the council president said, we inherited a lot of these items, but there are other items out there that really cut to the meat of some of the issues here in the city, and I think that, whether it be now or later, that we owe the citizens to take a look at it. I know some folks were interested in planning and zoning being restructured, the Board of Education being restructured, change to the Police Commission or a Civilian Review Board. Something I'm interested in is looking at whether or not redevelopment serves as best as the housing agency, the Affordable Housing Agency, and looking into whether or not, redevelopment being charged with being the development agency and the Affordable Housing Agency is a conflict. So I think there are a lot of other issues that we can look at, and, I understand that we have a lot this time around, but those are some of the things that I'm interested in seeing looked at.
Thank you, Ms. Bowman. Further discussion? Mr. Corsello.
Sounds as though we're giving this commission a very full plate, and I want to be sure that we give them enough time. I think we can still meet our July deadline if we give them until April 5th, another 2 weeks. And I'd like to suspend the rules and move to amend the resolution so that instead of reading March 22nd on item D, it would read April 5th.
Okay, there's a motion by Mr. Corsello to amend Section D of the resolution to change the submission date of the draft from the Charter Revision Commission from March 22nd till April 5th. You move that, Mr. Kimmel?
Yeah, I think it's a good idea, because the March 22nd date is a Tuesday that the council is meeting. The next meeting after March 20th, and we wouldn't be considering the resolution, the report, on the very day we received it. So after our March 22nd council meeting, our next council meeting is April 12th. That's when we would have been considering the March 22nd submission. So why not give the commission 2 more weeks? I think that's an excellent amendment, because it doesn't have an impact on our own timeline for considering it in the full council. We would receive it a full week before our next council meeting, so I would support that amendment.
Okay, all in favor of the amendment? Ms.
Can I just ask a
Maggio?
question on that? Does that give us enough time for the council to have a hearing and for the ethics committee? I mean,
We'll have the hearing after our meeting.
at the
Yeah.
charter.
Yes, according to the timeline in my discussions with Diane Belts-Jacobson, yeah, we should be in good shape. We would have about 2.5 months to do our work, which should be sufficient, and it would take us, that would still give us about around July 1st finishing up. If it went a couple more weeks, fine, into July. We would have a large enough cushion, because theoretically, we can hand back their submission and ask for additional work. So I think keeping it in middle of April still gives us plenty of time. No problem.
Yes, at the council meeting on April 12th, we would just be receiving the draft and
We
doing
will
the further
receive it
work.
On the
5th.
5th.
Well,
We'll
no,
receive it.
but at the council meeting on the 12th, we'd receive the draft officially or send it back to them for more work. Any further discussion? All right, so a vote on the, Mr. Sarasis.
What would be the appropriate protocol and/or forum if someone on the council would want to add something to the items that are listed here? I'm not saying anybody will, and I know that there's a full plate, but if indeed someone on the council wants to add another point to it, where, and when? What is the protocol on that?
Mr. Capola, do you have?
I don't know if I have an immediate answer. I think, as the council president pointed out, the Charter Commission is not restricted to the points that were raised this evening, and I would assume neither is the council at this point.
So that we would, so I'm speaking in terms of we, because I'm asking on behalf of all of us. So if one of us wanted to add something, do we add it here at a council meeting? Do we add it at a commission open forum here? And how would we add that if it's not part of the business of the council meeting of that day?
I think it would
I
have to
think-
be added this evening.
Excuse me.
to be
I think what happens is we'd have to add it now, tonight, because this is the Charter Revision Commission is formed, and the council gives the Charter Revision Commission their recommended issues. If there is a charter revision tonight, or if there's an item that wants to come on tonight, somebody would have to make that motion, and we'd have to vote on whether or not we wanted to amend our resolution to include that item.
We're going to submit a resolution tonight, so.
No, I understand,
Unless we
but from
amend
the
the
sub-
resolution that we submit,
Let me word this a different way. From the semantics that I just heard, that once we approve or do whatever, if we approve this tonight, the resolution, I thought I heard semantically that something can be added to it by the general public. So at that point in time, we're not considered general public?
Well, you could go, excuse me, you could go to a council, to a public hearing and recommend something. However, it'd be more appropriate as a council person to either make a recommendation this evening, or when the council holds their public hearing, when we accept the draft, and then we hold our public hearing, and then we decide that we're going to be moving forward on this, then you can make a recommendation at that time as well.
At our public hearing as a common council?
Well, as a common council person at a council meeting, the most appropriate time to do it would be right now, tonight.
But if-
However,
but if nothing's in place by any of us that we want, but we've been thinking about, when is the next appropriate time? Or is there
The
one?
April 12th meeting, I would say. Mr. Kimmel?
Yeah, I don't think there is ever, I remember as a council member going to Board of Estimate and Taxation meetings and speaking my mind. Whether it was correct or incorrect, I know in other instances, council members have spoken on issues that have in the past come before them, and then they would pursue them. In the lead up to this meeting, because of the special set of circumstances that applied to Mr. Hempstead through his job, I was going to work something out, if necessary, so that Mr. Hempstead could make his feelings known to the commission. My own personal view is when the Charter Commission holds a public hearing, I think there is ample precedent of council members, if they so choose, if there's something in particular that's emerged or come up, if they would like to make present their opinion to the commission, I think that can happen. I don't think that's a problem. I think I recall during the 2000 charter revision on the Board of Education, we never stopped debating at the council floor right through with the commission. So you can either make it right now in the form of an amendment, which we will deliberate on, or if something emerges and you feel that you would like to speak at the Charter Commission meeting, I don't think there is anything wrong with that,
But we're only allowed to speak, correct?
of course.
If you speak as a member of the public and meet at a public hearing, it will be just you speaking and saying, this is what I would like to see. That would have no authority as your position as a council person. So tonight, if you wanted to make an amendment and add another item, you could do that. I also believe that when they receive, on April 5th or earlier, we'll get their draft report. You'll have ample time to review that. And then on April 12th, when we have our meeting, before we have our public hearing, I think you would still be able to make an amendment to the Charter Revision Commission and add an item that night. And I think, Mr. Capola, if you would research that for us and have
Yeah,
an
I'd
answer for us
appreciate
by tomorrow or by the end of the week, if you could, by 15 minutes from now. So
I appreciate the research because I hear the word "I think" a lot, and there's nothing against the word "I think" a lot because it's great to think. But I think that the word "think" doesn't work as well for me. I need to know one
Well,
way or another.
I know tonight you could add an item if you wish, and that would be voted on by the entire council. And that's where you would exercise your authority as a council person by by moving an item forward. And then April 12th, you could do the same thing. So, but Mr. Capola will verify that.
So one last item of clarification. All that being said, that means that if they have the hearings and the public speaks, and nothing that the public brings up will be added to the items we have here, correct?
not necessarily. They can make any recommendation, yes, they can.
Okay, so we can speak as the public instead of our position here.
Right.
And they can possibly take what we say and add it.
Into consideration,
Okay,
yes.
thank
speak-
you.
you can
Now
speak-
I'm completely clear on that with the exception of the research that's going to be done.
Okay.
Thank you.
Mr.
I
Kites?
believe, to Mr. Russell's point, the commission's findings will be put in front of this council to be voted on at a later point. So I believe at that point, we could kick back the council's recommendations to them.
Okay.
Right. April 5th or before, they'll give us their draft recommendation. We have a chance to review it before the April 12th meeting. At the April 12th meeting, we have two choices. We can accept it in total, or we can send it back with a recommendation, and you or any council person could then recommend an added item on the agenda, and that would be voted on by the whole council. And then when they give us their final draft and we accept it, then we have to take and have a public hearing and then a vote on every item that they present to us, on an individual vote on every single item.
Okay, thank you. I'm satisfied with that answer.
Any further discussion? Prior to taking the vote, and I know we're going, I believe you indicated you want, do you still want a roll call vote?
Yeah, roll call.
Prior to taking the roll call vote, I know Mr. Kimmel thanked several people, including the city clerk, the assistant city clerk, Mr. Capola, Diane Bells-Jacobson, Stuart Wells, and Mr. Kites. I was going to thank them as well, but I would also like to add a deep appreciation for the work of Mr. Kimmel, who was tireless and worked very, very hard to get this done. I'm sorry, is there?
Did we vote on, did we ever?
We have to vote on the amendment.
No, we're going to vote on the amendment first and then do a roll call vote. Okay, thank you for the reminder. So first of all, we would vote on the amendment to item number D, letter D. The Charter Revision Commission shall submit its draft report to the Common Council on or before. It currently reads March 22nd. Mr. Corsello has moved an amendment to make it April 5th. All in favor of the amendment, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? So carries. Now, we vote on the item itself. We're voting on the resolution as moved by Mr. Kimmel with the amendment to it. A roll call vote by the clerk, please.
Just 1 second.
Mr. Bonifant.
Thank you. Mr. Mayor, I was fully prepared to vote no on this because I personally don't see something in here that's very pressing that the city needs. However, I think I might be the only one. So in the spirit of
Camaraderie.
camaraderie, partisanship, or whatever you want to call it, I guess in the end, we'll let the people decide, all right?
Thank you, Mr. Bonifant. Okay, if there's no further discussion, now if the clerk would call the roll or take a roll call vote.
Mr. Bonifant.
Yes.
Mr. Corsello.
Yes.
Mr. Kimmel.
Yes.
Mr. Sacchinelli.
Yes.
Ms. Melendez.
Yes.
Mr. Sarasis.
Yes.
Ms. Bowman.
Yes.
Mr. Sims.
Yes.
Mr. Kites.
Yes.
Ms. Maggio.
Yes.
Mr. De Palma.
Yes.
Ms. O'Toole-Durko.
Yes.
Mr. Igneri.
Yes.
Mr. Livingston.
Yes.
14 votes.
14 to vote, 14 to nothing. It carries by the 2/3 majority necessary. Congratulations to the council, and give yourselves a hand.